Hello, everybody, and welcome to UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts. I am Blaine Gilmer. That is Trent Smallwood, and we are here talking Georgia football recruiting, but taking a little bit different angle on things as it is talking season now. So we're going to join in kind of that fun a little bit. And what we did is we reached out to the loyal members of the UGA Sports Vault, and we asked them, hey, give us your bold predictions, what you would like to think is going to happen during the tenure of some of these 2024 prospects once they get to Athens and throughout their career in Athens. And Trent, we've seen some interesting ones, and we're going to dive into those here in just a little bit. But first, man, how are you doing? And second, how'd you enjoy watching some and listening to some SEC media days today? Football's getting close.
Yeah, it was good. I was in and out during work today, but I heard a little bit of LSU. Brian Kelly talking about the roster, if his roster was up to challenge Georgia basically, and he said at this time no, but he felt like he kept recruiting, he could get there. But it's just interesting to hear other coaches around the conference talk about Georgia, and Georgia's set the high bar. And I think everybody, they've won that last two national championships. So everybody in the SEC and in the country are chasing one team, and that's the Georgia Bulldogs. It's interesting to hear them talk about what Kirby's been able to build at the University of Georgia.
No doubt, no doubt. I thought our something was going on with our feed there. I don't know what's going on. Andy and Daniel, Jason, you guys let us know out there in the comments if you can see everything good, because something's acting up on me a little bit over on our production side of things. So y'all comment in here and let me know if everything's good. And also, while you guys are in here, hit the like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff, because we're having seems like a little bit glitch stuff on my part. But anyways, as long as it's good on there, Andy says it's good. Low Country Dog, everybody says it's good. So anyways, that's good by me, if even if it's just messed up on my end. But yeah, I thought it was interesting, that comment that you listed by that you talked about right there with Brian Kelly in particular there, Trent, talking about recruiting and saying where Georgia is at roster wise compared to LSU, even though things are seem to be trending up for LSU, and they were in the SEC championship game way earlier than what they thought they would be, things of that nature. But hey, that just shows you the level to where Georgia is. Now, I didn't watch any of the documentary, Them Dogs, that came on at 7 tonight. I've got it on DVR to go back and watch it. Did you watch any of that? What's your thoughts on that before we get going?
Yeah, I caught a little bit of it. It was more so, some speeches, probably edited speeches, pregame before SEC championship, and that was where I caught in at is before the Ohio State game, during the Ohio State game. It's just pretty neat watching the reactions on the sidelines, like when Georgia blocked the kick against LSU in the SEC championship, watching the whole sideline sit there and just waving and telling him no, 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 and then he picks it up and takes it to the house, and then all the coaches are like, "Yeah, this is pretty smart." But yeah, it's pretty interesting to watch. Especially when you've been without football since January, and you're diving back in, SEC media days, and seeing that tonight kind of gets you in the football mode.
Absolutely. And speaking of football mode, I mean, we're going to touch on these bold predictions here, but we're also going to be looking at high school games later on in the show, some of the biggest high school matchups. There's Jed's TikTok going on right there in the background. We're having all kinds of adventures right here, but high school matchups going on this fall, Trent. So, I know that's always fun. That's always something that we enjoy getting to cover, getting to see some of these guys that maybe even are on the commit list, but you may even have some questions about them. Okay, how do they fare against top tier competition and stuff like that? Just talk about how important senior film can be, even not just for, okay, where guys are in terms of, we know that they're going to, go to Georgia, most of them that are committed, but how their senior film could even affect things going into their time at Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, it's big because I mean this you're Georgia's sitting at what 26 commits, and they're it looks like Georgia's basically coasting to the finish with a few big dogs out still out there, but the senior film's important because if you're on the the cusp or maybe if you don't have a good senior film or you put on some bad weight or of that sort, you're looking at possibly not having a spot come signing day, and then this is a cutthroat business that recruiting's a cutthroat business, and these coaches are paid to win. And to get to that point, they have to bring the best players in as possible. So they stay on this stuff. They stay on, these kids keeping their weight intact, and they're watching senior film, watching their speed. I know Georgia's faced a lot of injuries coming in, and those are not really taken into account. Like Georgia still pretty much honors most of those scholarships, but yeah, senior film. For the most part, it is a big thing. Just staying in that football shape and showing that you're the same player that committed when you committed.
Yeah, and I think that when it's a guy that has moved to a different area as well to show off what they can do, a guy like Nitro Tuggle that's going to IMG, I think that's somebody that everybody wants to see. Okay, he was kind of a stud up there in Indiana where he was from, but how is he going to fare when he gets down to IMG? I think that's somebody that Georgia and everybody around the country will be watching pretty closely with how he performs this fall.
Yeah, and I think that's a big reason, a lot of the fans and everybody questions camp season. And I think the large thing you can take out of it is, I mean, you get a guy, just for example, of Xavier Truss, who plays up in Rhode Island, who is playing guys that look like they're 160 on the defensive line, and he's just bullying people. And then you come down here to the a rivals challenge or one of the big camps in Atlanta, and you're facing the top defense line in the country, and that's what Georgia wants to see you go up against. They're not just looking, or is he winning reps? They're looking, does he have the footwork to play in the SEC? Does he have the bend to play in the SEC? Does he have all the traits to be able to play offensive line in the SEC? And I think that's the reason why the camps are big, and that's the reason why the competition, like Nitro moving to IMG, that's the reason why that's big on his part, just to show what he can do against that kind of that kind of challenge.
Absolutely. And I think that, whether it's him, whether it's Nikar, I think even Sokovie White, I think, wide receiver has been a position that has been highly, scrutinized and picked over on the vault and stuff like that. But I think this fall is really going to be a big opportunity for those three receivers to really show this is what Georgia saw in them, and this is why Georgia's so high on them, but particularly Nikar and Sokovie White. I think Nitro Tuggle, everybody knows that he's a guy that is immensely talented, but kind of is growing into his potential as we talked there. But Nikar and Sokovie White, I think they feel they're pretty polished products, and I think those guys are really going to show off this fall.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people talk about can Georgia land a 5-star receiver? Honestly, they're on the cusp of having one with Nikar. I mean, Nikar could very well be a 5-star, one of the top 4 stars in the country when it comes time to finalize these class rankings. So I think Nikar and the route running ability of Sokovie White, and he has a large catch radius for a guy that's his size, but his route running ability just stands out to me, and so that has he shows that he's could play early with that route running ability and the ability to catch the ball away from his body and go into traffic, make tough catches. But I think both of those guys are guys that you can see play early, and I think Nitro might have the highest ceiling of all three as well. So,
no, I agree. I think he's a guy, and he. I may sneak in a bold prediction myself here as we get going, and mine may center around one of those guys. So I think it's going to be a good wide receiver haul, and they may not be done. I think I definitely think that there's going to be, Georgia would love to add a 4th one, and we'll talk about that as we get going here. But Trent, before we get to the bold predictions by the vault. We have to say thank you to Julie's Bookkeeping. They present the show here, and we're very thankful for them coming on as a sponsor of UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts. And listen, you need to do business with Julie and Chris at Julie's Bookkeeping, because most of the people watching this, you're dog fans. They're dog fans. They have a son who they raised him up to be a Georgia fan. He even went to school down at Florida State, came back, still an avid Georgia fan after that experience. So they raised him. They raised him right over there in a Georgia household, and now he is a guy that gets to say that he hates the Gators twice, is what Julie and Chris like to say. So on the Georgia side and the Florida State side. So Julie's Bookkeeping, they do what you shouldn't be worried about doing with your business. They handle all the bookkeeping stuff, whether it comes to, statements, whether it comes to tax preparation, any of that kind of stuff. They'll help you sleep easier at night, focus more on what you need to be focusing on for your business, and they can save your business money and help you to be more profitable. On average, outsourcing your bookkeeping helps your business gain $7,000 of profitability a year, because you're being able to spend more time doing what you do, and you let them do what they do. Julie utilizes technology and streamline the process so that she can provide more affordable options for small business owners. Listen, it's all about community here on the UGA Sports Vault and the Vent, and that's why the site has been so great over the years. These guys are a part of that community. They want to help you. You should help them. If you go to godogs.julie, the bookkeeper, that's JULIE, the book, BOOK, and then another K, KEEPER.com. You can schedule a 30-minute consultation for free, and they'll tell you how they can help you with your books for your business. So visit Julie's Bookkeeping, and they will help you out today. I'll put their information is in the description, and I'll also put it scrolling across the screen where you can schedule that 30-minute consultation today. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. Go ahead and hit the like button, and without further ado, we're going to get to Mr. R. Hall, because he said we missed his question last week, so we appreciate we apologize for that, R. Hall 55. But his he's got a prediction and he has a question. So his prediction, Trent, is Georgia will have 32 commits by the end of August, and he wants to know from me how many more silent commits are still on the docket. I think you would only probably have one, maybe two silent commits, depending on how they're subjective at times. But these are for sure one guy that I know has told the staff his intentions to be there, that has not announced publicly yet. But Trent, what do you think about his prediction of Georgia having 30? They're at 26 right now. So R. Hall 55 says 32 commits by the end of August.
I don't think it's going to happen, but that's pretty bold. We kind of went at the end of June, or going into June and going into July. We had numbers that we threw out there. I just don't think there's enough guys on the board that Georgia's still going after, that's announcing before 8/31 that they can hit that number. I think the more realistic number would be plus or minus 28, 29, maybe. I think 32 is a stretch.
Because you could lose a couple in between now and then as well.
I think you might see Georgia lose one and gain two, maybe, possibly three, but that's a stretch to go to 32. I think it's pretty bold.
Yeah, bold predictions. That's what we're calling it here. So if you had to rate that one, Trent thinks that one's up there, but it's not as bold as some of the ones that I've seen. So that are going to be on here. So those will be interesting. But appreciate R. Hall 55 tuning in with us and providing us that question on the vault. This is just a straight up question, no bold predictions. I wanted to get it out of the way early. Which of Nwaneri, Bolden, Williams, Chris Jones, and Nate Frazier will be on Georgia's commit list by August 10th? I think you can eliminate Nate Frazier from that, because I think he's taking an official visit in September, I believe. So I don't think anything will happen before then. I think there's a really good chance with Justin Williams as things sit right now. We know KJ Bolden is announcing his commitment on August 5th. So if he does select Georgia, Trent, it'll be before then. And Wander is August 1st, and that seems to be a Georgia-Oklahoma battle. So, and then Chris Jones has been rumored to be around sometime later this month. Nothing exact yet there. So, how many of those would you say are out there? Of those 5 will be on Georgia's commit list by August 10th?
I would say 3.
Yeah, so
I would say
you probably lose one at least.
I'd put the plus or minus at 2, to be on, or 2.5, because I think not knowing when Chris Jones is going to announce, I still like Georgia for Bolden and Williams. I think Williams DeWanner is the kicker. I think he would be to either push that over 2.5 or push it under. So I'll say 2, but with a possibility of 3 right now, to be before August 10th. I do like Georgia for Chris Jones, though. I do, and I still think Georgia is in an excellent spot for Nate Frazier. I just don't think neither one of them before August 10th.
Yeah, I think you could look at a solid 3 before August 10th for sure. I think that would be a safe number. Here's a bold prediction. As a freshman, it's really twofold prediction, because he's predicting that Justin Williams will be at Georgia. So that's a prediction. And he says, hey, he's going to rack up 90 tackles and 10 sacks as a true freshman. KSDJ 1869. That is as bold gets, in my opinion, there.
I could honestly see a player like Justin Williams getting the 10 sacks. The 90-plus tackles is going to be hard to reach. Just simple fact that I don't think he's going to play every down when he gets there because of the depth in front of him. But I could see him as a situational guy that they move around and blitz, and get 8 to 10 sacks. I could see that a third down guy that rushes the passer, kind of like they use Adam Anderson early in his career, and
Jalen Walker.
Walker. So yeah, I could see the sacks. The 90 tackles is going to be tough.
Yeah, that's a lot, and especially when you're talking about the inside linebacker class that's ahead of him. Now, he's a talented guy, but C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson, Bowles. There's a lot of guys that are going to be there that already have a year over him. That sometimes it takes a year to get adjusted over there at inside linebacker, but they will utilize him and his athletic ability for sure. Joe DeCo says Dylan Raiola elects to waive his scholarship and use NIL money to pay his way through college and wins back-to-back national championships as a walk-on. So invoking, the spirit of Stetson Bennett there, walk-on. I think who would have thought people would already be yearning for the walk-on story of Stetson Bennett to come back once again. But man, that would be something that's I don't know that that's unrealistic nowadays, Trent, that people could say, hey, I'm making so much money, I'll just pay for my college and allow Georgia to go get somebody else with a scholarship that needs it or something.
And technically, he's going to college in the same state as he lives in now, so I guess he qualifies for some hope.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't even know the qualifications.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
I don't know if you have to live there for so long. I have no idea with hope and all that kind of stuff. So,
but yeah, it would not surprise me to see it happen this day and age. You look at a guy like Dan at North Hall. He never got put on scholarship, but he's I would say he's not paying for much of his college. I would say he's well taken care of. So, yeah, I could see it. I just don't see it with a 5-star number 1 quarterback in the country type player. I could see it happen with a player, just not to his caliber.
Now, we've already seen Brock Bowers tell everybody that, hey, I do not want the collective money, that he's not taking money from the collective. Any money from the collective he wants directed towards his teammates. He's going to take his money from the bigger corporations and stuff like that. So we've seen that. And I definitely think you could see a guy like Dylan Raiola do the same if it meant adding another 4 or 5-star player to help out with NIL space and stuff like that, I could definitely see that happening. But I don't know if he'll forego a scholarship. That's a lot of money.
It's one thing about these Georgia players is it's all like a big family. I mean, we saw that happen with Jalen Carter last year, taking care of those guys with some NIL money. Some of the walk-ons and guys that don't get as much money as those star players, and they're taking care of their brothers. So, I mean, you see that lot. Guys using their NIL money just to take care of the guys that are fighting with them in the locker room that is not getting as much attention as they are.
No doubt. Next one is from Almond Bros 1. Bowens, meaning Chauncey Bowens, leads Georgia in rushing TDs as a freshman. So let's think of so his freshman year will be the 2024 season.
It'll be the junior year for
if everything
Branson.
goes, I mean Branson Robinson's going to be there. Technically Kendall Milton could still be there, but he's eligible for the draft. He'll probably go. And then, you're going to have Roderick Robinson there. Roderick Robinson's a guy, him and Branson are both big guys that could eat up carries that goal line. That's interesting to see if he thinks Chauncey. And then two, what if they sign Nate Frazier? I think Nate Frazier could be as dynamic of a back as Georgia has seen if indeed he does come to Athens.
Yeah, I do like the prediction. I mean, I like this one. This one is I would agree with this one more than a couple of the last few ones because I think
I still think it's bold. I don't know if it's as bold as some of the others.
Yeah, I think Bowens has potential to be very, very good, and I think there's going to be 2 junior running backs, or 3 junior running back, or 2 junior running backs and a sophomore running back in front of him. But I still, Georgia has shown that they'll use multiple backs, they'll use freshman backs, and Bowens is very good. I think that's bold, but it's the way Georgia uses running backs. It's not. It would not be surprising if a freshman led him in running back touchdowns.
Yeah, no, I agree. It all depends on usage, and some of those. Listen, as good as Georgia has been, there's a lot of opportunities for quote unquote garbage time as well, and some of those times, some running backs get loose, and some touchdowns get added to the stat sheet there that way as well. So,
right. I guess that they're going to have the third and fourth quarter against Florida every year. So.
There we go. We'll put that in there on the reel there on TikTok. Trent saying that Florida's hot garbage, pretty much. All right. So the boy racer 45, both Ellis Robinson and Nikar start multiple games as true freshmen. That's an interesting one because Kirby has always been a little bit hesitant to start a freshman at corner if he really doesn't want to do that. Like to have an experienced guy there if he can, but Ellis Robinson is as talented of a guy as I've seen at the corner position. I mean, he's the instincts, the ability to play the ball in the air, the competitiveness. I really like him a lot. And Nikar, here's my bold prediction: Nikar will be wide receiver 1 for Georgia at some point in his career. That is how gifted this young man is, in my opinion. I think he is as underrated as they come in terms of how people view him. I saw him and Jeremiah Smith working out on the same field, and I'm telling you, Nikar is not that far off in terms of where Jeremiah Smith is with the ability. Just it looks like they're gliding across the field and able to track the ball so well, make catches. So I like that one. I don't think that one's maybe as bold as Boy Racer thought it was going to be there, Trent.
I mean, I guess I can make a bold statement on top of this. I think Ellis Robinson is the most talented cornerback Kirby Smart has landed, which he hasn't signed yet. But as far as commitment, this is the most talented cornerback he has landed at Georgia since he has been in Athens.
Yeah, and that's saying something. I mean, there's been some guys, we didn't look like it at the beginning, but think how talented Eric Stokes ended up, being and what he's done in the NFL in a short amount of time. And And you had Baker there, which he was there before Kirby got there, but what he ended up doing. Tyson Campbell, who's now a stud in the NFL and was just immensely talented out of high school. Of course, Kelly Ringo was a 5-star and now is in the league as well. So that's saying a lot, but I don't think it's totally out there. I agree with you. I think he's a tremendous talent. All right, Big Fatty 94. He says on offense, Raiola wins the job as a freshman. So there's one prediction. Will be the best statistically in Georgia history. There's a really bold prediction. Lures in some big-time wide receivers in the 25 and 26 class and a huge quarterback in the 26 class. So this Big Fatty 94 went all out. He's saying they're going to land Julian Lewis pretty much in 26 because of Raiola coming in and dominating so heavily, and that he's going to have the best statistical season in Georgia history. That's a lot of stuff there, Trent. Let's parse through that one a little bit before we get to. We've already kind of touched on Ellis Robinson. He says Ellis Robinson can be a 3-time All-American on defense. I think we both agree with that. It's going to be really hard, but it's not far-fetched. I mean, I think it could happen.
Yeah, I think Raiola wins job as a freshman. I think that very well could happen. You got to watch Stockton. Stockton's relationship with the Bobo family and stuff. I think he's going to be given every chance to win that job. But I also think Raiola is going to make it very difficult on any quarterback in Athens with his with his ability to play that position. I don't know about the best statistically in Georgia history. I think I don't know what statistic basically we're talking about here. It's going to be hard to beat the yards thrown or whatever, but I think Georgia's going to throw the ball a lot more. I do think Georgia's going to throw the ball down the field. I do think that he can put up or average 300 yards per game plus. I do think he could lure in some wide receiver 25-26 class. Now, his production could very well, if he starts as a freshman, play the sophomore, it very well could have an influence on the Juju Lewis decision. Even though Juju Lewis has narrowed it down and stuff. These next couple of years, the way Alabama's transitioning their offense kind of back to a more pro-style offense, I very well could see this having an impact on Juju.
Yeah, I mean, Stetson Bennett had the most yards in Georgia history last year in a season, 4,127. Imagine saying that a couple years ago, dude. The most ever in a Georgia season. So Aaron Murray had 3,800 was the high going into that. So our man TK over there on my show, he calls him 4K Stetquavius. So 4K Stetquavius went off last year, but he wasn't the highest on touchdowns and stuff like that. Of course, Aaron Murray had all kinds of SEC records in terms of career because he played so long at Georgia and Bobo threw it so much with him. So, returning to more of the high flying, I think that's a great point that you bring up there, Trent. Like when you talk about Julian Lewis and we talk about Alabama and Tommy Rees and Mike Bobo at Georgia, it's really, a case, is this two ships kind of passing in the night type thing where Alabama's going more in the, okay, we're going to get back to some 12 and 13 personnel and, make a more of a commitment to running the football and going play action and things like that. And Georgia's maybe trending more towards, hey, let's opening this thing up a little bit more and continuing to develop offensively, especially with how Bobo, people have that misconception of how Bobo likes to stretch the field and likes to take his shots. I think that could be a very interesting dynamic there if that comes to fruition.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you talk about the offenses kind of going separate, in a different direction. Is I think Saban's realized over the past couple of years that when they transitioned offenses, he was still landing those big offensive linemen. He was still landing those talented defensive linemen. And over the past couple of years, he's seen Georgia become the most dominant team in the country in the trenches. And I think that's the one thing we look back on Mark Richt and say, why didn't Mark Richt win a national championship? He wasn't good enough on the offense and defensive line. And that's where Kirby's built. That's where he's built this program on the offense defense line. Look at this year's class on the offense line. And I think Georgia surpassed Alabama in the trenches. And I think that's the reason why Saban is like, we gotta get back to physicality. And it might not. I think they're still going to run an offense that has a quarterback that's ability to throw the ball down the field. I'm not saying that. I think they're just going to try to get more physical in the trenches and use them power backs that they have, because they got Haynes and all them guys up there that can really run the football.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out over there with the transfer. Listen, we got to talk about transfer portal now too, because that's a big aspect of a lot of this stuff. We're talking about recruiting, and you got to add in the transfer portal too. Well, Alabama now, they weren't confident enough in their quarterback recruiting of what they had. They had to go out in the transfer portal and bring in a guy who was at Notre Dame and stuff like that. So lots to pick through as we go throughout the season here. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how these situations develop. DB Dog 7, he says his bold prediction is Raiola is the first UGA player since Herschel to win the Heisman. So that's a big I mean, it hasn't happened. So that's a big prediction. And then he says he wins it by his sophomore year while also winning the national championship the same year. That's interesting because you haven't seen that happen in a while. I don't think. Joe Burrow maybe was the last one, but before that, there was a long streak of guys who, if they won the Heisman, they ended up losing in the national championship game. He says, and then he goes number 1 in the 27 draft. So DB Dog 7 is all in on him some Dylan Raiola here, Trent.
So would that be back to back to back to back to back? Would that be how many backs do we have there? I mean, that's bold, but it's honestly, I mean, it's something that the way Georgia is going on offense to kind of highlight the quarterback position more and landing the number 1 player in the country, number 1 quarterback in the country. It makes sense that I mean, this is bold, but it's not. It's something that very well could happen. I mean, you're playing the number one quarterback in the country is playing on the number 1 team in the country that's starting to highlight the quarterback position more. I mean, I can see it happening.
Yeah, it is going to be fascinating. Now, Raul is immensely talented, but that is a lot of expectations to put on anybody right there. But that's what he wants. That's what he came to Georgia for. That's what that's one of the main things that, one of his comments was that, hey, there's a lot to do at Georgia that hasn't been done in terms of offensively and individual awards and stuff like that. And as the high tide raises all boats. So as Georgia's talent level around him gets better, and also of course he has to compete with guys like Stockton and Puglisi first, so he's got to go out and win the job. But these kind of things aren't out of the realm of possibility with how talented Georgia is going to be over the next 3, 4, 5 years. So it's going to be quite interesting there. Jay Tofford, the UGA class of 2024 will produce more first-round draft picks than any in the history of college football. So, a singular draft class. I would be interested to know what the record is for a singular draft class producing, because all those 5 guys that Georgia had drafted in the first round, they weren't all from the same draft class or from the same signing class. But that would be a lot. I would be interested to know what that total is, Trent. Where's Dave McStats when we need him? We need to text Dave real quick and see if he can get on that and figure out. I don't even know if they keep that kind of stat.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Just bringing in 6 tackles, you got a feeling that 2 of them are going to be your left and right, and then that's the possibility of 2 going with the quarterback position, a talented tight end. They could push first round, and then the Ellis Robinson they could push first round. Then you got a guy like Justin Williams who could push up there if Georgia's able to land him. And then you got an athlete like KJ Bolden who is remarkably talented. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you what the record is, but I think Georgia has the potential to have a lot of first round picks out of this class. Just looking at it from a talent standpoint.
Now, it's also important that they go out on different years because that can add to it. I mean, it's hard in all one singular year, but if some of these guys hang around for 4 years, some go at 3, and you end up getting, hey, you get 3 1 year, 4 another year, then you're talking about 7 guys who've been drafted as first round draft picks, and that could really make that come to fruition better.
If Georgia takes 32 in this class, they're just preparing them for 32 picks.
There you go, 1 through 32, all Georgia Bulldogs. That you can send your tweets to at Smallwood Trent there on Twitter. He's the one that said that. So Andy Stowe, our man Andy, says this class will produce the second 1,000-yard receiver in UGA history. Terrence Edwards, of course, being the other one. But Trent, that's implying that somebody doesn't do it this season.
I think it happens this season.
Yeah, it's going to be the only thing that I think Andy may be thinking here is there's a lot of mouths to feed. You got to get Dominic Lovett the ball. You got to get Ladd McConkey the ball. You got to get Ra Thomas the ball. You got to get Marcus Rosemy-Jackson the ball. You got to get Brock Bowers and Oscar Delp, even Lawson Lucky the ball. You got to hand the ball off to the running backs. There's only so many yards to go around. That's the only thing I may wonder about. This is as deep of a weapon arsenal that Georgia has had in a long time. So I don't know if anybody can compile that amount of yards.
But I really think you saw since McClendon's been there, and I know he's faced some injuries, but he's really trimmed the substituting down, unlike what they used to do where they would rotate, rotate 3 guys in every play, basically. I think he's trimmed that down. You started seeing guys get 45, 50 snaps in a game. Guys like McConkey, Rosemy-Jackson last year was getting, I think he averaged, 45 to 50 snaps a game. Those guys, I think there's going to be a lot of production there, and I think there's going to be less receiving at the running back position because you've lost Kenny McIntosh, you've lost James Cook. I know they have guys coming in that can do it, but I think that those targets are going to be more suited for the tight end and wide receiver position. So I think you're going to see more targets to the wide receiver, which is going to allow that number to get close. Because I think McConkey, if he stays healthy, he could very well push 800 to 1,000. It's very realistic. I think Dominic Lovett is a guy that could push that too. And then you got Brock Bowers, who's of course is a tight end, but he could be a 1,000-yard receiver. So I think you got 3 or 4 guys.
Oh, Andy says he tells us, he's on here. He said, I think Brock gets 1,000. Just too many mouths to meet at wide receiver. So we got to read. He says second wide receiver. Yeah, 1,000-yard receiver. So he didn't say tight end. So there he's qualified it a little bit.
I still think there's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver this year. I don't know which name it's going to come from, whether it's McConkey or Levitt. Hey, maybe
I just did some quick math. If Arian Smith keeps his average of 32.2 yards per catch, he would only need 31 catches this year at that rate to hit 1,000 yards. So if he got 31 catches, Arian Smith could do it at the clip of 32.2 yards per catch, which is his career average. So hey, there you go. We'll see what happens.
What did McConkey have last year? 762. Man.
Yeah, and he probably had 200 yards and drops there in the middle of the year. He had the yips and dropped a couple balls and some deep shots and things like that. So that it's feasible for sure. But for Andy Stowe to work out, he needs Brock to do it and not a receiver for his bold prediction. All right, so this one's a bold in the other way. Bold in the negative sense for Georgia. GAW God Dog 19 says the Dogs will not only miss out on every 5-star wide receiver left remaining in the 24 class, but they will never land one in the next 3 classes. Says 5-star wide receivers and UGA don't mix. We're like oil and water. Ooh, I mean that's pretty bold in the opposite direction there, Trent. That they don't get one in the next 3 classes.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen because I think Naikar has every chance to be a 5-star in this class. And, saying They very well could miss on if you're referring to Wingo and Matthews and Jeremiah Smith. They very well could miss out on those. But I do think Nikar is going to be or really push for that 5-star status this year, and then next year, they already have a commit for next year. But I don't think they get Ron Williams at the end. That's somebody I think sticks to Alabama, but I also think it goes back to what do the offenses look like this year? I think a lot of people are still, they're still questioning Georgia's a running team. Georgia's a running team. Even if you can put up the stats and show that Georgia passed for this many more yards than Florida did last year, they think Florida's a passing team and Georgia's a running team, and it's the negative recruiting on the trail that it still haunts Georgia in that aspect, but I still think Georgia's going to put up a lot of passing yards this year, and that's it's going to go away on the field. I think the only way Georgia can put it away is throwing for 300 yards a game on the field, and they were close to it last year. But I think it was more, hey, they dump it off to their tight ends, they dump it off to their running backs. They're not necessarily throwing to their wide receivers, and I think that's where you're going to see Georgia have 1,000-yard receiver this year.
Are you ready for what I think is the boldest one of the entire deal? It's from our good friend D. Franklin 31. He says the Dogs flipped Justin Scott, Jeremiah Smith, and Mike Matthews before early signing day. Roderick Robinson leads the Dogs in rushing this season, and Carson Beck is a Heisman finalist.
The last two, I'm all about. The first three.
So you think Roderick Robinson, as a true freshman, could lead Georgia in rushing this season?
Yeah, just for the simple fact, I trust Dejon. I just think Dejon's more of the I'm going to come out there and I'm going to kick your butt in the third and fourth quarter type back, and he's the kind of guy that just puts the exclamation mark on it. Kendall Milton is troubled to stay healthy, and I think Andrew that Paul's still there coming off ACL. I just think if this could be a year where a freshman comes in and does that, and Roger Robertson is SEC ready from a physicality standpoint. Like his frame and everything's. But that would not surprise me to see Roger Robinson lead the Dogs. I think if I was predicting right now, I think Kendall Milton's gonna have a special year, but this is only if he stays healthy, and he hasn't been able to do that so far.
And the thing with Kendall Milton has been the soft tissue injuries, and those are it's just something you can't predict, and just gotta Kendall willing Milton, for him that it works out better for him this year. So
he looked like a 5-star running back in the second half of the season when he was healthy last year, and I think or the last 4 or 5 games, and I think if Georgia can get that Kendall Milton, they're going to be fine. But again, he was out for the spring with a hamstring, I think. So you got to have Kendall Milton healthy, or I could see Roger Robinson coming in leading Dogs in rushing. Would not surprise me.
Now, the first part, we just Dogs flip Justin Scott, Jeremiah Smith, and Mike Matthews. I guess he's implying Mike Matthews going to Tennessee on when he commits on the 19th, which that's probably a high possibility. Man, if Georgia were to flip all 3 of those guys, one, I want to find the guy who wrote the NIL check, because that would be a massive achievement. I want to go see if I could wash his car on the weekend or something, get a little extra change myself. You know what I'm saying, Trent? Because that would be a massive undertaking to do that.
Yeah. I don't see how any way that could happen. And I don't think Georgia, the reason why you only see top teams land 5, 6 in the NIL era is just because there's not enough, NIL money to go around for these top guys. And you start seeing those kind of separate a little bit. I don't see in any world that those 3 flip to Georgia. I could see one. I could see, if 2 happen, I don't think you're going to flip 2 5-star wide receivers come signing day.
I don't even think Luke Bryan and Jason Aldean are writing that big of checks to Georgia to help float them for that kind of thing. So it'd be, you never know. Darth Janus ends it up here on the bold predictions by saying this class will win 2 natties at least. Yazid Haynes in the 23 will have a 1,000-yard season. I'm assuming he's saying before he's gone. Both Raylan Wilson and CJ Allen win the Butkus Award in their careers, and Raiola has over a 4,000-yard season. That's going to happen. If he's the quarterback at some point for an entire season for Georgia, he will have over 4,000-yard season. I think you're honestly going to start seeing those regularly, even with Carson Bett this year. I think you're going to see 4,000-yard seasons stack up here for Georgia throwing the ball, because I just think they have so many weapons and defenses can't stop it.
Yeah, Raylan
Yazid
Wilson,
Haynes, I can see that. I can see the 2 natties, but that Butkus Award deal, that's interesting there.
And it's not. I mean, I think Raylan Wilson and CJ Allen are both studs. Like, I think Raylan Wilson is really, 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 really good. Both of them winning it. You'd have to see one of them win it their sophomore year, one of them win it their junior year, maybe, before they both went off to.
Or one go to the league after their junior year, one come back as a senior and win it that way. That's how that would probably have to go down.
Yep, but then if you have Justin Williams coming in right behind them, there's a lot that goes into that. I think Georgia's inside linebacker depth is so deep. It's going to be an all out brawl to see who gets those linebacker spots, and especially this past class coming in on top of having your 2 starting linebackers coming back this year. I think you could literally go 6 deep and just be very talented at the inside linebacker position this year. And I think that's one of the reasons why you saw the 2 guys transfer out, one going to Alabama. I think they saw what was in that class, and it's only going downhill from here. You still have Jelon Walker at that position. I mean, you just have man. Schumann's done some work on the trail to have all these guys come in after one another, and he continues to put out NFL draft picks. So props to him, but that is a very bold statement.
Yeah, that's what we wanted. We wanted bold predictions. We appreciate you guys on the vault playing along and giving us your bold predictions here for the class of 2024 as they enter into their senior years and enter into their Georgia career. Shortly after that, a lot of these guys will be on campus in January and embarking on the start of that Georgia career. We'll dive into the high school matchups a little bit more in depth, but real quick, Trent, before we sign off, I know some games that I'm looking forward to just from a standpoint of Raiola. If Bolden comes aboard to Georgia, Jaden Perlotti, seeing those guys and Buford play this year against teams like Marietta, like Collins Hill, like St. Francis early on from out of the Baltimore area, of course, playing against Mill Creek. So I think those type of games are really tell you a lot about where those guys are development wise and what they're going to do against some really stiff competition over there at Buford.
Yeah, and do they play away or home against Mallard Creek of North Carolina? I mean, they got 4 or 5 games that's going to be very, very good. I just look forward to good competition games. I think you're going to see a lot of that. There's a lot of, Juju at Carrollton's going to have some big games. There's just going to be a lot of big games with some big quarterbacks in it. And, I'm looking forward to the season. I haven't dove into all the schedules quite yet, but even around here, I think Gainesville's going to be very good. Buford's going to be very good. I think there's Collins Hill and those teams are going to be. There's just going to be a lot of talent around this Gwinnett County Hall area, and I think I'm looking forward to the season. I'm looking forward to being able to go out and seeing. Especially Raiola, especially in that first matchup, being able to go out and see him and see how he performs. Because I know you saw him in a 7-on-7 session, or not 7, a throw-in session over at Jefferson, but I haven't yet to see him live. And I'm just, I'm looking forward to just seeing him, the way the ball comes out of his hands and being at Buford.
Yeah, it's pretty special for sure. He just the release, the fundamentals that he had. We got some questions here on YouTube. We'll hit real quick before y'all go. Why isn't Bolden considered more as a receiver? He's very smooth. He's a talented guy, but I think the consensus is everybody just sees him as being a safety at the next level. His instincts, his ability to close on the ball. I mean, just he's a sure tackler. So they like him a lot on that side of the ball. Aiden Cruz asks us, in your opinion, did we land another wide receiver in 2024 class? I don't know. I go back and forth between that. I know that now with Matthews having set a commitment date of the 19th and it looking like that's going elsewhere, and Wingo's towards December. I still tell people all the time, I wouldn't put any stock in anything that you're hearing about where Wingo is going to go right now. It's going to be much more towards December when that gets decided. And Missouri's going to be in there, Tennessee, Texas, but I think Georgia's going to be in there as well. So that could be an option. Amari Jefferson, I just don't feel as good about right now for Georgia. But Trent, there's going to be some talented guys in the transfer portal that nobody even knows about yet. That I think that could be really your better option than going the high school route at this point, maybe with some of the options that they would have.
Yeah, and you could see Georgia lose. Numerous guys at the position with guys like with Levitt, McConkey, Ra Thomas, who had a good year. I mean, a bunch of these guys are going to be draft eligible, and you could see Georgia lose a lot. So I could very well see them taking another one. But yes, the transfer portal is going to continue to be electric every year, and I think Georgia's going to continue to be on the hunt, especially as long as they're not saying that they are landing talented wide receivers, but as long as they're wanting the wide receiver depth, like they went to get Ra Thomas and Dominic Levitt this year, and being able to get two of the top receivers in the portal, Georgia's going to continue to go that route in the years to come.
Absolutely. Back to some high school games real quick. I was looking at Colquitt County's schedule. They play Lee County at home, which Osmani Chroma is going to be playing against them. So there's a talented running back in the 25 class. I put out a big board, a hot board today on 2025 running backs over on the site. So that's him matching up against Nycar in that matchup over there. Colquitt also plays at Camden County, which is where Elias Williams is this year. So that's going to be a big game as well. So a lot of matchups that inside the state of Georgia here that we're looking forward to being able to see those guys kind of lock up and use as a measuring stick.
Yeah, it's got a little different. I thought it was funny, Georgia, when Kirby came along, we used to be out every Friday seeing Georgia commits because there were so many commits in state, and it's helped this year with Dylan Raola transferring in and being able to go see a commit at Buford. I know they get Perlate, but being able to go and see him. But when Georgia started recruiting nationally, you get like halfway through the year and you're just rotating back through the commits and seeing them again. So we get to see them. We'll see a couple of the commits, numerous times this year, and I'm looking forward to being able to see Sokovy, especially his ball skills and his route running ability. I'm looking forward to seeing him, and there's a Georgia hasn't landed as many in-state guys, but if Georgia's able to land KJ Bolden, you're going over and seeing 3 commits at Buford. So it's going to be a fun year being able to see these guys, and even some 25 commits as well.
Speaking of big games, Nair Daniels and Bergen Catholic, they'll be playing in Florida against Chaminade, which is where Jeremiah Smith plays. So that'll be a big game. Bergen Catholic plays against Don Bosco Prep. So you could potentially see Nair Daniels versus Jordan Thomas against each other, 2 dog commits going against one another in that game. So there's lots of big games to look forward to, not only in the state of Georgia, but around the country as well. And like I said, we'll dive into more of those, but I just wanted to mention some of them, just kind of tease those out there as we're getting closer to it. Trent, anything you want to leave everybody with before we hop off here?
No, I'm looking forward to SEC Media Days in the morning with Kirby getting on there and talking about Georgia. Looking forward to hearing from the players and seeing. I know there's going to be questions thrown out about how he convinced his team that they were going to be 7-5 this past year, or how their expectations are going to be so low. And I'm interested to see, his answers on that, because I still don't know. I didn't think Georgia was going to win the national championship this past year, but I definitely didn't think they were going 7-5. So it's interesting to see how Kirby works, and the motivational standpoint is keeping these players from year to year focused on the prize, which is ultimately winning the national championship, and how he keeps that focus after winning back to back.
No doubt, it's going to be fun to cover as we get through the talking season here and enter into actual football season. So we appreciate all you guys tuning in. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, check out our show partners over here, Julie's Bookkeeping. All the information is in the description. Go to godogs.juliethebookkeeper.com for a 30-minute free session. Appreciate you guys. Like I said, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Georgia football recruiting next Monday night at 8:30 on UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts.